Right, so I'm starting off today's vlog just at the apartment. Today I'm actually going to link up with my mate Lee, who you guys probably would have seen on the channel a few times before, perhaps if you've seen some of the old videos that I've been doing. So yeah, guy lives right near me in the UK, and we go to the same gym basically, so we'll get some sessions in. I've been training with him, you know, just the odd occasion over the past few years, so yeah, it's been a good time now. He's taught me a lot of stuff that I've obviously used within my training, my nutrition, things like that. And just genuinely a really nice guy. So yeah, it'd be good to get a session in. Him and his girlfriend have been traveling all around, and they're now coming back because they're basically going to fly out of Bangkok. So they're getting a sleeper train from Chiang Mai. They've got a few hours basically free today, so I said let's get a workout in, and yeah, let's just get things going. So plan is now they're getting a grab to the apartment, and then we're just going to decide what gym to go to. I'm pretty much easy, to be honest. Like, it's chest day today, so for me that's quite simple. I don't need a lot of equipment. I pretty much just need a Smith machine and a pec deck. So there is a gym that I went to yesterday to train legs, CNX gym I think it's called. I did say we could go there because it's very close, or if they want to we can go to like Pump Fitness or somewhere else. Just depends really. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to leave the intro here, probably just jump back in for the first set of incline Smith. I reckon this one will probably be a voiceover just because I want to catch up with them and stuff like that. It'll just be a little bit easier. But yeah, should be a great video. If I get any food before the gym, I'll try and record that and let you know what I got. So yeah, let's get into the session.
All right then, people. So yeah, like I said, I'm just doing a voiceover for this one because I was meeting up with Lee in Chiang Mai, which is actually really cool. And I just wanted to enjoy the session with him, you know, have a chat about his traveling and stuff like that. So at that point, I hadn't actually been round to any of the islands or anything. So it was really good to get a bit of info from him just about everything, really, you know, the travel, the actual places themselves, the gym, the food, the culture, and just get a bit more of an idea of what to expect. And at that point as well, I hadn't actually made my mind up on a complete plan. So yeah, in hindsight now, I'm so happy with the most recent bit of traveling that I've done. Obviously, when I'm doing this voiceover, it's a bit weird because it's kind of a little bit in the future. These videos are backlogged just because I'm pretty much training like 7 days a week at the moment. So usually I'm having one rest day every 2 weeks. So when I do that, I'll pretty much do that on a travel day and then merge that into just another training video. But yeah, anyway, into the actual session itself here. So we're doing a Smith machine to start off with. We did try and do incline, but unfortunately there were no benches free. So we just decided to do flat bench. I'm not really a fan of Smith machine flat bench in particular. I just find that if I'm going to do flat, I'd rather do that with a barbell and typically go a bit more close grip, which you can kind of see here. But then if I do incline, I like to go a bit more wide grip and do that on a Smith. For shoulders, I do absolutely love doing shoulders on a machine. So that just works for me specifically. I would say for you guys, don't just limit yourself to one thing, but for me in particular, I've found that those are my usual favorite. So if I'm going into a new gym, that will kind of be what I'll look to do first. And obviously if they don't have that, for example, here, then we've just chose an alternative and actually worked out pretty well, like both able to lift relatively heavy, nothing crazy, but just enough to get a good stimulus on the chest. And also nice to have someone else to kind of, you know, spot, help lift off and get those assisted reps. So yeah, I've talked about it a lot on the channel before, but I'm a huge fan of partial reps, assisted reps, just things that push you to and beyond failure, because that is the best way to grow the muscle and, you know, provide enough stimulus to do that, but also maintain the muscle when you're dieting. So yeah, we pretty much just went back to back for quite a few sets on these, and the pump was pretty decent after this. We do move on to do a few more chest exercises here, but in terms of like what sort of rep range we're doing here, I think is around probably 8 to 12, probably on the lower side actually, probably around 8 or so, but it just depends what we're really feeling on that day. I mean, me and Lee have trained together a few times. Sometimes we'll go really, really heavy, but at this point in time, neither of us are in a phase where we're looking to put on a huge amount of muscle. I think we're both dieting at this point, so there was no need to overload and go for like, you know, 3-4 plates either side. But as you can see here, both starting to build up a good amount of tension through these reps and actually push past failure with a few assisted reps coming into play there. So if you have got someone that you can train with, guys, I would say, really try and make use of that spot. But at the same time, it's super important, in my opinion, to actually track the reps that you can do yourself. So what I would say is, if you're going for a set of bench press at 100 kg and you've got someone there spotting you, don't just have them come in at, rep number 4 or 5 if you're able to do 7 reps. Because then if you don't train with someone, it's very difficult to gauge exactly where your strength is at and if you're actually able to progressively overload. So, it's kind of different. If you train with someone every single day, then I guess in that way you could just pretty much go for assisted reps. And as long as you know that you're going to failure every single time, then that kind of works. But at the same time, then you just don't really know when to stop giving those assisted reps. So what I would say is track your own progress, do as many reps as you're capable of. And then when that bar stops to go up anymore, pretty much give that a little push up and just let them finish that rep. You could go for perhaps 1 or 2 more. On a bench press, I wouldn't really be giving more than like 2 or 3 assisted reps. I think after that, that is a little bit ridiculous. And to be honest, same on a chest press machine. The machine that we're using here is pretty easy to spot, even though it's unilateral, which means that it's, 2-sided. You can kind of just grab the handles and push it up a little bit, but I'm not actually sure if we did end up doing assisted reps on this one. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of chest machines myself, to be honest. Like, I think I just get enough stimulus from doing bench press of some sort and then pec fly. So it's just not really a need for me to do that. I just don't feel like the pump is actually visibly any better, or even physically it doesn't feel much better either. And I don't really enjoy doing that movement. So for me, I would typically save my kind of strength and my nervous system for a separate exercise, such as a shoulder press machine. Because for me, I'm more inclined to grow my delts and my shoulders rather than my chest. Whereas for a lot of people, they want to grow their chest. So because I'm training with Lee here, I'm absolutely fine to do a bit more of the chest machines. But then as you can see here, we did end up actually moving on to a shoulder press machine. This one didn't feel like absolutely amazing, but it did feel pretty good here. I think we're doing about 80 kg overhead press here, something like that. Can't quite see the weights there. And probably the same that we did on the chest press there. And I think Lee was giving me a few assisted reps on that chest press. So yeah, definitely, like I said, going above and beyond failure. And I'm sure the DOMs after this day were pretty good. So I think the shoulder machine there, you can kind of just get a spot on this one. Sometimes obviously it's a little bit cramped up in the gym, and when you've got 2 guys that are pretty big, it's sometimes difficult to actually get in there and push the weight up, but still managing a few decent reps on 2 plates either side. So I have done quite a bit of Smith machine overhead press in my time, and also I used to do a fair bit of seated overhead press on the barbell rack, like in the squat racks, and I think that was pretty good. But to be honest, just does build up a lot of fatigue, and sometimes just is really, really difficult to progress when you get to extremely heavy weights. So for the shoulder press machine, I typically go for a high rep kind of set, somewhere around 10 to 15. I wouldn't really be going for a super low set. I think as well, that's because it's quite difficult to actually get the weight up in the first place. So if you're doing a Smith machine bench press, even if you're by yourself, you can load up the weight really, really heavy, 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plates either side, maybe more if you're an absolute beast. And you can just unrack it, go for the set, and then when you reach failure, you can rack it. So, while I'm actually explaining this, that is probably one of the reasons why I absolutely love the Smith machine, because I am training by myself, 99% of the time. And if I'm actually able to progress while I'm in, Thailand on a specific movement, I want that to be where I'm not like worried about the bar coming down on my chest and being stuck under there. I want to be able to absolutely focus on just going crazy on the set. So yeah, that's why, as I said here, I'm going for a much higher rep on the shoulder press, and even dropping the weight as we get further through the sets, because it's just more difficult for me to actually get that weight up in the first place. Even with a spot, sometimes can be a little
Same.
bit more awkward. Obviously, a pec fly machine, you know, not only is it a little bit of a difficult position to go for a really heavy rep set, because obviously rotator cuffs and just a really heavy stretch would sometimes just put you at a little bit of risk. You know, even if you've got really strong shoulders, you've warmed up, etc., obviously putting your shoulders back into that position with a heavy, very, very, very heavy weight versus a lighter weight where you can stretch, contract, and squeeze that is going to be a little bit more risky. So I'm not saying don't go for pec fly sets that are around 8 reps. I'm just saying that, you know, probably going to be less inclined to do a repetitive low rep set every single week, because then I feel like you will build up a huge level of fatigue. But then again, that's just my personal opinion. You guys can obviously try your own methods out and see what works for you. I'd say in my experience, I also hugely prefer a pec fly machine, just because I find it really easy to get that symmetry. So when I'm doing cable flies, one foot is always having to be out in front of the other. So you've got that lead foot, which then ultimately puts one of your shoulders tilted towards a certain angle. And then I find that that arm gets more of a stretch back, which is just very, very difficult to correct. So obviously you can alternate the lead leg, and that is what I would do. If you've got a, you know, very disciplined kind of workout routine, you might want to put an equal number of sets, so that then you know that you're doing kind of a balance of 2 on the left, 2 on the right. I know that might sound really boring and monotonous, but obviously you just don't want to have an overdeveloped left side of your chest or an overdeveloped right side of your chest if you can help it. Now, not to say that even if you do that, it will be perfect, because ultimately a lot of people will still have a bit of a kind of unsymmetrical body, even if that's delts, biceps, you know, vascularity can be very different. So some people, even myself included, you know, veins on one bicep can be completely different to the other, and that's not always a bad thing. But yeah, if you can help it, usually you want to keep the body with some sort of symmetry. Even if you're not a bodybuilder, that just kind of, you know, goes without saying. So yeah, moving on from the shoulder press machine, I think we went straight onto the pec deck, and then the lateral raises pretty much just spammed super high rep, low weight. I'm just getting so bored of lateral raises recently. I'm really craving lateral raise machines, but because I'm obviously moving around in Thailand, Vietnam, etc., even if I find one, I'm usually then moving on to a different gym. So it's very difficult for me to actually kind of build up that strength. And I'm still keeping the volume high. I'm definitely maintaining them as best as I can see. But yeah, I do think that when I move to a lean bulk, which is going to be very, very, very soon, I want to find a gym which has a very nice lateral raise machine, so that I can just go crazy and, you know, pretty much just use that as a main driving factor in building up my delts. So talking about what muscle groups I want to build, I haven't actually thought about that a huge amount recently, because I do think that I'm pretty well balanced. Obviously, my calves are always something that I'm going to try and grow. So choosing somewhere with a standing calf raise machine is going to be really important for me. As I said, side delts, but also front delts. So sometimes for me, when I'm thinking about what I do want to grow, the easiest way to kind of narrow that down is actually think about my strengths first. So I'd say I'm not trying to focus on my back or my chest or my rear delts. My quads, I would say a little bit, probably more so, will be calves and hamstrings, front delts, and then maybe my abs. So yeah, I think that'll be the focus for the next bulk. Maybe some lats as well. I did focus on them a lot last bulk, so kind of want to give the other muscle groups a little chance as well. But yeah, what I like to do sometimes for myself and also my clients, if they're actually bothered about one particular muscle group or a few muscle groups, is I'll kind of let them put them in a tier list, so then we can create a slight bias towards those muscle groups. And when I'm planning the volume for the week, or I'm planning the frequency of a certain exercise, I can then constantly refer to the tier list and just make sure that the order of priority actually serves the right purpose. So won't always do that. Obviously, many people won't be actually that bothered, or it will actually be in their best interest to keep things balanced. If, for example, they are a beginner in the gym, then I wouldn't just go straight to a biased plan, because then, like I said, you're going to start to build up imbalances, and not just for the aesthetics, but also for the strength. So even if you're not a power lifter, even if you don't think that you train for strength, those things will go hand in hand. And by those things, I mean aesthetics and strength. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. But at this point in time here, looking at the video, I am pretty decently lean, but as I'm talking to you now, I'm absolutely diced. So yeah, it's cool to see the progress, but also still nice to actually look back and kind of respect the shape that I was in there, and not just think, why was I actually not looking like this, or why was I not lifting this amount of weight? You've obviously got to look at the overall kind of path that you're on and just make sure that like it actually gets you to the point that you want to be. So at this point in time, as I said, I'm recording this now looking back at this video, which was a while in the past, and I can say that I'm so happy with the goals that I've achieved. So obviously, even if at this point in time I might not have felt as strong as I did when I was bulking, and I might not have felt as lean as I've done at this point in time, you still have to just push through. And obviously, eventually, as long as you've adapted to any problems that have come into your plan, whether that be diet, nutrition wise, or the training itself, then you should be constantly getting closer towards your goals. So yeah, I'll leave it with there, guys. If I sound tired, it's because it's like 3 in the morning, but I'm making sure to get this upload up. So yeah, hit that subscribe button. We're nearly at 500 subs. And as always, the only way is up.